Stop for a moment and think about this. What if everything you've ever believed about time is wrong? You've been taught since you were a kid that time is this straight, relentless line, past behind you, future ahead, and you're just this tiny dot moving forward second by second, minute by minute. But what if I told you that's just a version of reality? A version meant to keep you playing by certain rules. Because if you actually understood what time really is and what you can do with it, the illusion of control would fall apart. You wouldn't be predictable anymore. You wouldn't be easily managed. See, we've been trained to see time as a ticking clock, a calendar full of deadlines, a constant chase from morning till night. But that's not how time really works. And the truth, it's been hidden in plain sight, tucked inside ancient scriptures, whispered by mystics, and even outlined in declassified government documents. This isn't fantasy. This is forbidden knowledge that turns time from a trap into a tool. Here's what they didn't teach you. Time isn't a current you're stuck floating in. It's a field, a space you can move through, reshape, and even step outside of. And here's the wild part: you've had the key to unlock it all along, ever since you learned how to read a clock. A programmed illusion. From the very start, you were taught that time is linear, simple, past, present, future. Logical, right? But that's not the truth. That's a program, a mental operating system installed without your permission. Once you accept that model, you unconsciously agree to its limitations. You stop questioning, you stop exploring, and without realizing it, you give up your ability to move through time in any other way. You stop seeing options, possibilities, frequencies, because that's what time is: a frequency, a filter, a perspective. The ancient truth about time. Long before we had clocks and schedules, ancient mystics were already exploring time in ways science is just now starting to understand. In Hermetic teachings like the Emerald Tablets, time is described not as movement through space, but as a movement in consciousness. That's not just poetic, that's literal. When Thoth, the legendary Egyptian sage, wrote "Free am I of the bondage of time," he wasn't being symbolic. He was revealing something we've forgotten: that time isn't rigid. It bends, it folds, and your mind is the thing that bends it. Today, quantum physics is starting to confirm what those ancient texts hinted at. Experiments have shown that particles can influence each other across vast distances instantly. Time can dilate, collapse, and even loop. Observation, your awareness changes the outcome of what's being observed. So what does that mean? It means that time is not just something happening to you. It's something you're actively participating in, even shaping whether you're aware of it or not. The script that keeps you stuck. Let's take a step back. Why do you think this knowledge was hidden? Why were you never told that you could move through time with your mind, that your memories and imaginations were doorways, not just mental noise? It's simple. Because if people remembered this truth, they'd stop being easy to control. They'd stop obeying artificial limits. They'd become powerful, sovereign, free. That's why this knowledge wasn't lost. It was buried, coated in metaphors, shrouded in mystery, dismissed as myth, fantasy, or woo-woo. But if you've ever had a moment of déjà vu or felt like a dream showed you something before it happened, guess what? You've already brushed up against it. Time travel is consciousness. Travel, you don't need a time machine to move through time. You are the machine. Your consciousness is the vessel. When you remember a moment vividly, your body may still be here, but your mind is there. When you imagine the future with emotion, focus, and detail, you are energetically there. You're not recalling or predicting, you're visiting. This isn't wishful thinking, it's vibrational tuning. Change your internal frequency and you change your access point. That's how ancient mystics traveled through time. Through stillness, sound, intention, and focus. And it's how you can too. The CIA's quiet confirmation. Now let's fast forward to the modern world. You might think this sounds spiritual or symbolic, but here's where it gets serious. The CIA, yes, the United States government, spent years studying this, and they confirmed it. In a declassified document called the Gateway Process, researchers described a method of using sound to shift consciousness into non-ordinary states where time becomes flexible. They weren't interested in peace or relaxation. They were looking for non-local awareness, the ability to step outside time and space to gain access to information from any point in the timeline. And guess what? They found it. They described the mind as a kind of frequency receiver. And with the right vibrational tuning, it could access past events, potential futures, even parallel timelines. Does that sound familiar? It should, because it's exactly what the ancient texts were trying to tell us, just without the scientific jargon. You are the tuner. So here's the big shift. Stop thinking of time as a road you're walking down. Start seeing it as a room. Not one you pass through, but one that rearranges depending on your frequency. What you focus on, what you feel, what you believe, those are the dials that shift your position within time. That gut feeling, that moment of déjà vu, that dream that felt more real than real life, those are all signs that your consciousness is tuning into a different layer of time. You've already done this. You just didn't have the words to describe it. Now think about this: if time is a structure, not a stream, what happens when you stop moving through it and start arranging it? What if memory wasn't just recall, but a form of access? What if imagining the future was more than fantasy? What if it was a doorway, a frequency match, a dial-in? This isn't metaphor. This is mechanics of consciousness. Ancient mystics weren't talking about gods in the sky. They were mapping vibrational states of awareness. They encoded everything: travels, teachings, initiations in symbols, stories, and architecture that bypass the logical mind and speak directly to the subconscious. And if you've ever felt like something in those myths rings true, even though you can't explain why, it's because they weren't telling stories. They were describing you, a version of you that already remembers. You don't travel through time. You tune into it. Time is not a place. It's a frequency. Your mind is the tuner. Think about a radio. You're not changing the device, you're changing the signal. And when your internal signal shifts, when your emotional frequency changes, when your thoughts align with presence or stillness, you access a different stream of information, a different layer of the same reality. This is why time seems to fly when you're immersed in something and crawl when you're anxious or disconnected. Your internal frequency bends your perception of time, but it doesn't stop there. It bends what shows up in your reality, because reality itself is responsive. Emotion, Russian frequency, sees access. This is why mystics emphasize stillness, not because they wanted you to sit around doing nothing, but because stillness is precision. When your mind is quiet, when your breath slows, when your thoughts no longer spiral, you become a finely tuned instrument. In that stillness, you're not zoning out, you're tuning in. Gratitude, peace, clarity. These are high-frequency states. They give you access to expanded timelines, versions of the future that are lighter, more fluid, more aligned. Fear, guilt, shame. These are low frequency. They anchor you to dense loops, repetition, the same mistakes, the same struggles. This isn't judgment, it's physics. Timelines are not destinations, they're mirrors. Most people believe they're walking forward on a track called life, but what they don't realize is they're carrying the track with them, and the direction it goes in, that's dictated not by circumstance, but by internal frequency. So when you feel stuck in your life, when the same patterns repeat over and over, it's not because you're cursed or unlucky. It's because you haven't changed the station, and life can only reflect the channel you're tuned to. The good news: you don't need to fix your life from the outside. You just need to shift internally. The reality shift is subtle but seismic. Ever noticed how things feel lighter after a breakthrough conversation, a powerful meditation, or a moment of deep insight? You didn't just feel better, you shifted frequency. And in doing so, you stepped onto a new timeline. A timeline where new opportunities are possible, where synchronicities increase, where people respond to you differently. This is not random. This is resonance. And resonance is the real law of attraction, not visualizing a car or a house, but becoming the kind of vibration where those experiences naturally emerge. Psychic time travel, shift conscious tuning. So let's redefine what time travel means. It's not jumping into a machine and disappearing into the past or future. It's not cinematic, it's vibrational. When you revisit a childhood memory with full presence, not judgment, but awareness, you're accessing that point in time. Not just watching it, but observing it with new consciousness. And in doing that, you change your relationship with it. Sometimes you even change the memory itself. When you visualize your future not with desperation, but with clarity and alignment, you're stepping into that vibration now. You begin to attract insights, circumstances, and impulses that align with it, because you've shifted the signal. This is psychic time travel, And it doesn't require technology, it requires tuning. Stillness is the key. Silence is the doorway. It's not flashy, it's not loud. That's why it's overlooked. We've been trained to believe transformation must be big and dramatic, but the deepest transformations are often invisible from the outside. A breath, a realization, a letting go. The Hermetic texts teach that all is mind, meaning the outer world is a projection of the inner state. So if you want to change what you see, you don't wrestle the reflection, you change the source. That's the true technology of time awareness. Mental alchemy, the lost art of shifting time. The ancients practiced something called mental alchemy, the ability to shift internal states to change external outcomes. It wasn't superstition, it was structure. The alchemists weren't turning lead into gold. They were turning lower emotional frequencies, fear, resentment, stagnation into higher frequencies, clarity, willpower, joy. Because they knew that when you shift internally, the world around you reconfigures. This is why initiates of the ancient mystery schools weren't taught to worship, they were taught to master their minds. The system depends on you forgetting this. Why is this knowledge not taught in schools? Why is the ancient science of vibration, consciousness, and time dismissed as nonsense? Because if you remember it, if you embody it, you become impossible to control. You stop being a cog in a machine. You stop obeying timelines that aren't yours. You start living intentionally, sovereign, self-directed. And that is terrifying to any system built on conformity. This isn't about rebellion, it's about reclamation. Taking back your mind, your timeline, your knowing. Time doesn't happen to you, you happen to time. And this is the shift when you stop asking, what will happen to me, and start asking, what am I choosing to tune into? That's when life changes. Because the script was never set in stone, it was set in frequency. And the frequency was always yours to tune. You weren't meant to obey time. You were meant to shape it, to move with it like a dance, not get dragged by it like a burden. Every moment you shift your awareness, you are shifting your timeline. You're not here to be on autopilot. You're here to awaken and co-create. That's what mystics knew. That's what the Emerald Tablets tried to encode. That's what science is just beginning to whisper quietly under layers of data declassified files and high-level research. Because when you realize that your frequency is the pen and reality is the paper, everything becomes editable. You don't escape time. You rewrite your position in it. And here's the secret nobody tells you: when you shift into a new frequency, you don't bring your old patterns with you. They start to dissolve, not because you're fighting them, but because they're no longer in resonance with you. That toxic relationship, it fades because you're not vibrating in the same place anymore. That job you hated, it breaks apart because your energy no longer feeds it. Even your body starts to respond because physical cells are mirrors of mental signals. You think your body just runs on biology, it runs on vibration. You are a time-traveling instrument made of energy, memory, and intention. Every heartbeat is a pulse of frequency, echoing through multiple layers of time. Mental discipline, timeline authority. Now let's be honest, this isn't easy. It takes discipline to observe your thoughts, to not get sucked into old loops, to notice the guilt from 10 years ago and choose not to feed it, to see the fear of the future and choose not to tune into that channel. This is why ancient initiates train. They didn't just memorize symbols, they practiced control over their thoughts, their reactions, their inner states. Because whoever controls their mind controls their position in time. That's what psychic time travel is. It's not a party trick. It's not magic. It's mastery. Mastery of your emotional frequency. Mastery of your internal narrative. Mastery of your energetic direction. The real-time machine is presence, and now we come full circle. The reason they buried this truth, the reason mystics were silenced, rituals were demonized, and entire civilizations erased, was because presence is power. And when someone becomes present, fully intentionally, vibrationally aligned, they can no longer be manipulated by fear, time, pressure, or guilt from the past. They step into what Hermetic teachings call the now of the all, a field of consciousness that's not limited by clocks or calendars, a realm where you can meet your future self, receive guidance, and then embody that energy now. A realm where healing the past means literally freeing yourself in the present, not just emotionally, energetically. You're not remembering something new. You're reactivating something ancient. All of this, the idea of vibrational access, nonlinear perception, psychic navigation of time, it's not new. It's old. So old, in fact, that it's coded into your DNA. It's part of your design. That's why when you hear it, it doesn't feel like information, it feels like recognition. Like you're waking up from a dream you didn't know you were in. And the more you wake up, the more real this timeline becomes. The more vivid your intuition, the more natural your synchronicities, the more effortless your manifestations. Because your frequency no longer fits inside the box of normal time, you're remembering a skill your soul never forgot, just temporarily silenced. The system can't stop you from remembering, no matter how hard it tries. It can flood you with content, bury you in distractions, shame your inner voice, and train you to doubt your feelings, but it can't shut down your access. You will dream again. You will experience those glimpses outside of time. And if you pay attention, they'll happen more and more often. Because time responds to presence, it ripples around clarity. And the moment you decide to stop being a prisoner of time and start becoming a participant in its creation, you're on a new track. You're no longer living the same old loop. You've upgraded timelines. And here's the wild part. Everyone around you might still be playing by the old rules. That's okay. Because you're not here to convert them. You're here to anchor the new frequency, to live it, to walk it, to radiate it. And when you do, others will feel it, even if they can't explain why. Your presence becomes a timeline trigger. You won't need to preach. You won't need to explain. Your calm will become contagious. Your insight will spark questions in others. Your energy will speak louder than words. Because the most powerful revolution is vibrational. And the most radical thing you can do in a world built on time control is to reclaim your inner rhythm. To create rest, think, feel, and move, not according to deadlines, but according to resonance. This is not just personal growth. This is timeline transformation, and it begins right now. Not when you finish another book, not when someone gives you permission. Now, as you tune into a different feeling, a more grounded breath, a sharper presence, you're not imagining this. You're re-entering the command center of your reality. And you're beginning to write the script, not from reaction, but from remembrance. Because you are not your story. You are the author of time. And this moment, this choice, this frequency, it's yours.